It's no secret that R.O.B is a very strong character in Smash Ultimate. Maybe not the absolute strongest, but certainly not someone you can afford to sleep on either. A reputation like this doesn't just appear out of thin air. It's built on the back of some of the most busted moves in the game. Now, what moves, you might ask? Well, even the worst of his kit is still far from worthless, but today I'm taking a deep dive into his entire kit to break down and rank all of his moves from his biggest flaws to his most game-breaking assets. I'm Glyph Money, and this is the R.O.B moveset tier list. Let's begin as R.O.B's entry animation does, from the bottom. We'd be hard-pressed to call any of R.O.B's moves bad, but the moves here in D tier are certainly nothing to write home about. First, or last, depending on your perspective, is R.O.B's grab. While his throws are certainly something we won't be seeing again until later on in the list, actually securing that grab can be extremely difficult. R.O.B's game plan usually involves either A, zoning from a distance, or B, spacing attacks as far away as possible. Neither position gels with his tiny grab range, meaning he has to put himself into danger just to even have a shot at landing one. In R.O.B's defense though, he's got no hands. He's effectively trying to scoop his opponent up with two hockey sticks, which is more challenging to say the very least. Next up in D tier is Jab. Now, Jab is absolutely functional. It's fast, does a bit of damage, and knocks his opponent away. Jab, however, suffers greatly from being outclassed from another option in his kit, one that we won't be seeing again until much higher on the tier list. However, did you know that R.O.B's Jab actually had a brief period of being broken? Early in Ultimate's lifespan, Jab 1 was coded in such a way that the furthest hitbox would suck the opponent in closer, likely an attempt to help it connect better with Jab 2. The problem was, with very tight timing, you could loop Jab 1 into a down tilt and then back into another jab again. This was dubbed the Robble, alluding to the Icy's infamous wobble combo from Melee. However, the Robble's time in the spotlight was short-lived. The dev team caught on to this oversight soon after its use became more widely known, and Jab was back to being a forgettable option. Rounding out D tier is Forward Tilt. F-Tilt is an odd move, as it fills a role that R.O.B really doesn't often need to be filled. He's at a much better range slightly further or closer than Forward Tilt positions you, making it a competent move, but one that is outclassed in almost every scenario by other options. That's not to say that Forward Tilt is never a good option, just that those moments are very few and far between. In particular, Forward Tilt is R.O.B's fastest option for punishing a ledge hang, and can occasionally serve as a safe follow-up where other attacks will be negative on hit. Personally, I use Forward Tilt as a low-risk finish to my down tilt pressure. Moving on, we climb now into C tier, where we find the attacks that are certainly viable choices, just not particularly impressive ones. Let's start off with the 1-2 combo of forward and backwards throw. On their own, these moves are about as standard of throws as you could expect, with back throw in particular killing at ledge at high percents. However, these moves aren't entirely without their utility. When used at the ledge, they both set up very well into his projectiles, though whether that is a credit to these throws or the projectiles themselves is up for debate. Next, let's talk about Forward Smash. This move has some impressive range, but the high startup and end lag make this a risky option to select. Being disjointed helps apply pressure, but often this would be outshined by a projectile or aerial attack. It's worth noting that this attack can be angled, but only very slightly. There are a few instances where it comes into play, most notably covering ledge hang when angled downwards, but in most cases the angle has very little impact. Despite this move's range, the sour spot is laughably underwhelming, keeping this move from placing higher on this list. Last move for C tier is Dash Attack. This move's burst potential makes for a great mix-up, especially when opponents aren't expecting such a strong zoning character to rush in. Dash Attack can even be a combo starter at low percents, and can help you hold on to advantage state while covering landings that would otherwise be very difficult to reach. However, Dash Attack's utility falls off hard as the percentages climb, and is one of his least safe options on shield. This brings us to B tier, where we start to break through the fair and balanced barrier. And speaking of fair, let's talk about R.O.B's Forward Aerial. While this isn't the flashiest attack, it serves a crucial role in R.O.B's kit. Specifically, it's the only way to apply horizontal pressure in the air that doesn't take an eon to actually come out. Just looking at the raw data of this move, you'd probably be surprised to see it this high up. However, this move brings a ton more utility than it would seem at first glance. When you're being comboed, Fair is fast enough to interrupt a string and get you back to neutral. Fair is also one of Rob's best out of shield options, allowing him to reach otherwise safely spaced attacks. Fair's best and most potent use is off stage. You don't need to smash someone into the blast zone to kill them, you only need to push them a bit further than the recovery can handle. This is especially devastating if you can catch a character's jump with a forward air, as many characters up B alone will come up short of recovery, while Rob makes it back with ease. This move can even shift Rob from being a disadvantage offstage into a commanding advantage state, if you catch someone getting a bit too greedy with their edge guard. That all being said, speed is not everything in aerial attacks. Let's talk about two of his other options, Bear and Dare. These attacks both have a fairly uncommon trait of having built-in momentum, with Bear pushing Rob forward and Dare stalling him in place. Despite the similarity in design, changing the direction of the attack makes all the difference in the world. The push forward allows Bear to auto-space itself. So long as you're remotely in position, it will often push you too far away to be punished. Bear's slow startup can even be used to your advantage, as an unexpected Bear mixed in with standard pressure can cover dodges or people dropping shield too early. Dare's purpose is much more relegated to spikes, though the gigantic 7-frame hitbox associated with it allows him to cover the entire ledge with ease. Timed well, you can 2-frame just about any recovery with this, though the windup makes this attempt telegraphed enough that good opponents will just stall their timing slightly to evade it. Dare does have some limited use in neutral as well, as stalling your momentum can mix up an opponent trying to catch your landing. Now, there's a special instance of Dare that I've gotten tremendous use out of over the course of my career. Remember that little stall and momentum it has? Well, if you combine that with a short hop right at ledge, you can cover the ledge and then use that stall to drift back onto stage. This auto-cancels Dare's in-lag, allowing you to cover even a buffered roll get-up, despite having just been attacking off stage. Many players' gut reaction to an attack like Dare at ledge is to try and get as far away from it as possible, which, sadly for them, is actually about the worst decision they could make here. Next up, let's look at Rob's up tilt. I love this attack. There's just something so jubilant about it. Makes me feel like there's a little mini celebration every time I use it. But it's actually a very strong attack as well. While the range is very narrow, it reaches well above him and puts opponents into a very dangerous position if you connect it. Even the sour spot, while underwhelming at first blush, has some true follow-ups if you're ready to react to it. Up tilt really shines on stages with platforms, allowing you to lock down opponents trying to move through them, or even shield poke or catch jump squats. It also confirms into up air for kills at certain presets, though that window can be very narrow if your opponent is skilled at DIing the final hit. And speaking of up air, this move is one of the most commonly employed kill moves in all of Rob's arsenal. Up air excels at both juggling people above him as well as catching people trying to land, as the multiple hits allow you to contest the air for longer than most air dodges will last. As mentioned when talking about up tilt, this move's viability is directly pegged to how well your opponent can DI the final hit. Poor DI makes this one of the most powerful kill options Rob has, but perfect DI will leave you struggling to kill until much later than you'd ever expect. This move can even be used to drag opponents down with you for some flashy combos, though these are rarely actually true follow-ups. We've got one more move for B tier, and this is the final move before we start to enter the realm of the unfair. Our final addition here is down smash. This move is everything you could ask for in a down smash. Multi-hit, strong, great launch angle, and immediately hits both in front and behind Rob. So many down smashes force you into positions where you have to read a roll or set up very specific timings for each hit, but not here. Rob gets to just mash down smash and let the move worry about where your opponent actually is. This makes down smash Rob's best and least committal choice for a tech chase, allowing you to cover multiple options with a single attack. This move is particularly good when comboed with a spot dodge cancel, which has been an infamous combination since back in Brawl. Friends, we've broken through the atmosphere and are starting to reach the real stars of Rob's kit. Welcome to A tier, where we can really start to feel what makes Rob work. Let's start with one of my personal favorites from his kit, up smash. In my opinion, this is what every up smash in the game wishes it was. It's fast, powerful, and it's reliable. Like down smash, this attack covers both sides of R.O.B at the same time, making it much more flexible for covering options. The scoop hitbox on the ground is particularly devastating. Even though it technically is very small and can only connect with opponents touching the ground, it has a wonderful tendency to destroy movement options like rolls. While harder to pull off, up smash can also be used as an anti-air against landing opponents, hitting far higher up than many would expect. And speaking of this is actually the only way you could use this move in Brawl. The launcher hitbox was only added in Smash 4, a quality of life change that took a pretty underwhelming option and made it into one of R.O.B's best means of closing out stocks. This move isn't just strong, it comes out quickly enough to make it a very potent out of shield option as well. Next, we've got another two-parter with R.O.B's best two throws, up throw and down throw. These both serve very different purposes, but both offer amazing utility in their own way. Up throw is a very interesting case, as its best use comes very early on in stocks, then falls off until very late. Early on, this move has the advantage of being R.O.B's most damaging throw, as well as setting up for some easy free follow-ups with attacks like fair or F-tilt. However, once you get past the early percents, follow-ups from this become very difficult to find as it simply hits your opponents too far away. Up throw's viability wraps back around once you reach very high percents, transitioning then into R.O.B's most reliable kill throw, especially with a platform in the mix. Now, up throw has an amazingly powerful but very niche use that has become next to impossible to set up an ultimate due to the switch to a hazardless stage list. See, most up throws are coded in a way that once you go up, you come back down and land regardless of what happens to the ground below you. But R.O.B's up throw is different. R.O.B follows the law of gravity, meaning that if you can manage to get an up throw off stage, well, this happens. This was not as hard to set up as you'd think, especially back in Smash 4. There were two stages where you'd see this the most commonly, Dreamland and Smashville. Dreamland was my favorite, as it was one of the only reasons to seriously track what Wispy was doing in the background. Smashville was a bit harder to set up, as it was much more telegraphed when you were fishing for this, but all you needed to do was secure a grab while the platform was moving off stage, and then collect your free stock. Note that this does kill R.O.B first, so you still need to have a stock lead for this to be effective, but the ability to close out a stock at 0% is not something you can afford to sleep on. This even has the added benefit of being impossible to mash out of, putting it in a league above the other suicide throws available. Down throw is actually the weakest of the buried down throws available in Ultimate, but that hasn't stopped it from becoming a crucial part of R.O.B's strategy. See, R.O.B's always had a bit of a problem actually ending stocks, especially at lower percents. Getting a down throw sets up a crucial moment, a 50-50 decision for your opponent where if you can guess correctly, you kill them. If they mash quickly, you can cover that with up air, and if they wait, you can up smash instead. The pressure on your opponent to choose correctly, often multiple times in a single game, can give R.O.B those much needed windows to land these kills and advance to the win screen. This serves to replace the 50-50s we saw in Smash 4's down throw, where the 50-50 was instead based on waiting for air dodge or covering jump immediately. However, there's a bit of a downside to this change to the bury mechanic, as players with the fastest possible mash can escape even up air well into the range where you'd believe this to be a guaranteed kill. Against these players, down throw goes from one of your best options to one of the least effective, though the players with that mash speed are few and far between. Note that this isn't necessarily something you have to guess on. You can actually watch your buried opponent to see if they're mashing or not based on how much dirt is being kicked up. Now, you may have noticed that we're nearing the end of this list and we haven't talked about a single one of R.O.B's specials yet. And spoiler, that's because his specials are really, really good. Let's start with the newest addition to his kit, Arm Rotor. If you've played Brawl or Smash 4, you probably remember this move as Spinny Arms. And if that strikes you as sounding silly, it's because that move was silly. Hitting it accomplished next to nothing. It didn't hold people in place well, and even if it did connect, you were only prone to getting punished for it. Most side B inputs were seen off stage when someone tried to up B at an angle, and usually ended with R.O.B slowly and helplessly dropping off the bottom blast zone. But those days are gone now. Now this move is deadly serious. It now not only links together very well, but the final hit has an incredible level of base knockback. Pair that with R.O.B's offstage mobility, and you can find kills that previous versions of R.O.B could only dream of. Remember, one of R.O.B's biggest problems was struggling to close out stocks, and this move more than helps bridge that gap. This move may well be the single biggest buff we've ever seen from one game to another. This is our last stop before we reach S tier. The moves that aren't just good, they're better than the tools any other character has. And frankly, this move only just barely misses that cut. R.O.B's laser is the perfect poke tool. I've spoken about this at length in a previous video, but even this doesn't do this attack justice. Think about just how far away you have to be before you are completely out of range of this attack. And now, consider what kinds of tools most characters have to even begin to compete with at that range. Sure, there's a few that could shoot something back, but rarely with this effectiveness and never with this flexibility of angle. Most of the other attacks come locked to specific degrees, giving that attack consistency, but coming with the cost of that extra flexibility. Not laser though. Laser can go wherever you'd like within its range. My favorite thing about laser is that since Brawl, it's been relatively unchanged. It's always been a quick, flexible, and massively long-range poke. The mere existence of laser means that in almost every matchup, the burden of approach is placed onto R.O.B's opponent, which is exactly what you're looking for in a character who thrives on boxing their opponent out. Something I didn't touch on much in the previous R.O.B video is just how good both versions of laser are. Having a passively charging attack is amazing, as it naturally feels to be the most useful version on its own. See, if you're getting small lasers, it's because you're successfully keeping your opponent out enough to prevent the charge from building up, meaning you're happy to keep the faster but weaker version on tap. However, for the matchups where you're getting overwhelmed, you lose those chances to fire off weak lasers, instead automatically getting access to the heavier hitting super laser for those crucial moments where you can take a shot. Small note, there's technically a zero charge laser whose hitbox is present on all 3 levels of charge, but this is almost never something you're going to be intentionally hitting outside of hard reads or attempts to style on an opponent. Laser is one of the most challenging moves in Smash to master, as each individual angle is frame specific. While learning this move, it's best to focus on the 3 most consistent shots: max angled up, max angled down, and no angle at all. Once you get the hang of landing those, then you can start experimenting with the more nuanced angles in between. S tier, the final frontier, the realm of gods. Moves in this tier aren't just strong, they're unparalleled in their power. And yes, I'm saying that the moves in this tier are the absolute best versions of that attack in the entire game. And R.O.B doesn't just have one of these moves, he has 4. You may disagree with this claim, but even the most adamant denier will struggle to call these moves anything but busted. Let's begin our voyage into the Divine with an attack that any player who's lost to R.O.B already knows and fears: the mighty down tilt. Remember early on in this list where I talked about jab being outclassed by another move? Well, here we are. You see, jab is frame 3, which is pretty standard for a jab. But down tilt is also frame 3, and massively more useful. This move is only active for a single frame, but you can throw it out with such rapid succession that it may as well be a multi-hit in many instances. Not only that, but it does a respectable 5 damage a pop, tacking on damage faster than jab could ever hope to. But we're not done there. Down tilt also has a significant chance to trip an opponent. It's hard to predict when this will happen, but if you get lucky, then there's practically no restrictions to the follow-ups you could select. Think of it like this: R.O.B's down tilt is a frame 3 poke tool that you can spam, and sometimes it throws in a Diddy banana for good measure. Looking at this attack's raw data is enough to make its power clear, but it's even better once you start putting this into practice. Down tilt isn't just a poke, it's also a jab reset, or a combo extender, or even a kill setup. It's this ability to excel in so many different areas that makes this the uncontested best down tilt in the game. Next up in our pantheon is Robo Burner. Some people will see this placement and scoff, because how can an attack that is not capable of doing damage be an S tier recovery option? Well, the same way that Float turns an otherwise fairly average character like Peach into one of the strongest options in the game. You see, it's all about flexibility. Even the best recoveries in the game are bound by ranges. Most don't even give you an option. You push up B and you end up in the same place every time. But Robo Burner? Well, the world is yours with Robo Burner. You want to go to the top corner blast zone? But sure, it's probably got a great view from up there. You want to go admire the hard work that went to crafting the bottom of the stage and then come back to the same ledge you started from? Go crazy, bud. I'm sure there's someone on the dev team that'll be thrilled someone finally noticed their work down there. But this isn't even the beginning of what makes this move stupid strong. This flexibility means you can actively react to your opponent's choices as they're playing out. You can control how fast you climb, when you climb, and where you climb to with nearly unlimited freedom. Oh, and the best part? You can attack out of this just like you'd be able to if you'd jumped instead. This means that technically, there is not a single pixel on screen that your opponent can be safe from R.O.B. And as of Ultimate, if you save your jump, you could even go into a special attack after. Ultimate, and as an extension Smash as a whole, is a game that is all about timing and positioning. With Robo Burner, you are granted a level of control that no other recovery can match, and then also given a range that blows every other recovery out of the water. Robo Burner's only real downside is that your ability to drift horizontally is not super effective, but you can even get around that by pairing it with Bear. Doing so does leave you open for attacks, but that doesn't matter if you're doing it above the top blast zone. But that's not the only way to cheat horizontal movement out of Robo Burner. I would be remiss not to mention the most boundary-pushing technique R.O.B has to date, burner boosting. Made famous by the R.O.B main Lucretio, this technique combines R.O.B's initial dash, a jump, and up B together to generate a rapid burst of horizontal speed at the start of Burner's activation. Not only is this one of the most stylish techs available, the expanded threat range gives R.O.B access to kills that were never even conceivable before its discovery. This technique takes a lot of practice, but the applications are potent enough that it's worth the grind to master. We're approaching the end now, friends, but let me pause to reflect on my personal favorite move in the entire game. Now, I may just be biased, but Gyro is the best projectile in Smash history. Remember when we talked about how strong Laser's ability to hit different angles is? Gyro does something very similar, but faster, more dynamically, and with more power to boot. This makes for an unbelievably strong ledge guarding tool, giving R.O.B access to risk-free coverage at practically unlimited range. Sniping people is only the tip of the iceberg for offstage, as sometimes Gyro can be just as lethal when dropped straight down. You could even get creative and bank it off the bottom of the stage if you're feeling particularly saucy. So, Gyro is busted off stage, but it's actually even better at the ledge itself. A thrown gyro has a trait where it always hits the direction you are facing at the time it was thrown, which gives you access to one of the most horrifyingly efficient ledge traps in all of Smash history. See, the gyro in place here covers neutral get up, jump from ledge, and just trying to wait the gyro out. Meanwhile, R.O.B himself is covering roll and, when spaced correctly, get up attack as well. So, what do you do when you can't pick any of those options? Well, mostly, you die. Now, this isn't foolproof. Good timing or movement can get you around it, but it's undeniably one of the most deadly and simple ledge traps in all of Ultimate. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, the spinning gyro itself can also block other projectiles or even net you kills without you touching the controller. Okay, so gyro is pretty clearly very strong at a distance, but believe it or not, it's actually arguably even stronger up close. See, when you Z-drop an item, that hitbox becomes active frame 1, which is already very strong, but even more so once you recognize that that isn't actually R.O.B doing an attack at all. This means that not only are you getting an immediate attack, you're doing it with zero commitment. This allows for some absolutely bonkers combos, though my quote-unquote stupid fingers aren't quite cut out for such a rapid succession of inputs. Note that this isn't just strong for R.O.B's combos, but also an absolutely phenomenal tool for breaking out of an opponent's combo as well. A small bit of trivia for Gyro. Its power is actually directly related to how fast it's moving, meaning that if you can accelerate it with something like a windbox, that power can absolutely skyrocket. So, let's recap Gyro a bit. It's busted while you're edgeguarding, it's insanely strong while you're defending the ledge, it gives R.O.B access to combos that range all the way up to true 0 deaths, and it's one of the most powerful stage control tools in the game. I simply cannot overstate just what a ridiculous move this is. We arrive now at the pinnacle of our list, home to one of the most unfair and broken attacks of all Smash history. Now, look upon my Nair, ye mighty, and despair. This move isn't just the best Nair in the game, it's a strong contender for best aerial in the game, period. Now, bear with me here, because I know that's a bold claim to make in a world where we have attacks like Palutena and Nair to compete with. See, there's actually a few things that all come together to set R.O.B's Nair apart from the rest of the cast. First, R.O.B's Nair is massively disjointed. The strength of having disjointed attacks has never been more pronounced than it is in Ultimate, thanks especially to the nerfs to defensive options like shield and air dodge. There are many characters in this game that lack any substantial disjoints, and Nair alone tilts the balance of neutral massively in R.O.B's favor. But that's only the first layer. Next, let's talk about where R.O.B's Nair covers. It starts off directly below him, wrapping all the way around and ending back in roughly the same position. This means that no matter what direction an opponent approaches from, R.O.B's Nair has the potential to cover it. Nair creates a bubble of protection around him, one that can be favorably positioned against any other attack in the game. Okay, so Nair is a disjointed attack that covers every possible angle, but that's only the physical description. Nair in practice actually serves as the heart and soul of R.O.B's neutral game. In the early percents, Nair is a great means of opening up an opponent and getting a quick combo online, setting up very well into attacks like up tilt or his other aerials. Towards the mid percents, it hits a bit too far away from many combos, but does have a bit of application for confirming into kills. Now, late into the game is where Nair really starts to pull its weight. Sometimes you'll find yourself in a situation where even the smallest mistake could cost you the game, and Nair is your best friend in such high pressure situations. It doesn't kill until extremely late, but that's okay. R.O.B thrives on chip damage, and getting someone to 200% is not nearly as big of a task as it would be for almost any other character. There are tons of powerful attacks in Smash, but it is very rare to find one that has such an impressive level of utility at literally any amount of damage. Nair is not a flashy attack, but don't take how powerful it is for granted. This is an attack that is almost never the wrong option to pick, and it gives R.O.B the tools needed to establish aerial superiority in practically any matchup. People have often asked me, how do you beat a move as strong as Nair? And the answer is simple. Get there before it starts. For all of Nair's strength, the biggest limiter on it is its slow startup. Hitting R.O.B before the move can actually begin is about your only hope, because once it's in motion, it's already too late for you. Well then, that brings our list to a close. If it wasn't obvious from the fact that I put together a 30-minute video on the subject, R.O.B is a character I have a lot of passion for. I really feel that he has the tools to be successful in any situation you put in front of him, and that there's always room to take his kit even further. For all the work I've put into this video, I must remind you that it's all coming through the filter of my own playstyle. This video would not have been possible without the insights and advice of the other R.O.B players in the R.O.B and Side B discords. I simply cannot recommend checking them out highly enough. Making this has taught me more about this character than I could have ever expected, but that just goes to show how much potential this robot has. If you have any cool tricks or uses for anything that I've missed here, please let me know about it down in the comments. It helps a lot for the algorithm, but more importantly, it helps get me the information I'll need if I ever revisit R.O.B for a new video. Either way, I'll be out there doing my part to show people just how broken this character is. Thanks a ton for watching, and it's been Glim.